You will be asked a series of questions obtained from community groups, organizations, and individuals. Also, there will be an opportunity for the audience at the end or coming to the end. There will be an opportunity for audience to ask questions via the question and answer button on Zoom at some point during the debate. You will also have 1.5 minutes for your opening and closing remarks. You will have 1 minute to answer all questions within the body of the debate. And right now, I'm going to introduce our timekeeper, Breanna Montero. She is a member of our press and public committee, and she will be explaining how the timekeep will work. Breanna?
Thanks for the introduction, John. My name is Breanna, and tonight I will be giving the time cues as follows. So green will indicate that it is time to begin speaking. Yellow will indicate that there's 15 seconds left of speaking. And red will indicate that time is up and you have to stop talking. And that's it. Thank you. Back to you, John.
All righty. Thank you, Breanna, for that information. So before we get into the opening remarks, I would like, this is really for the audience here. I just want to say thank you for being here with us tonight. If you want to submit questions during the debate, please do that using the Q&A function on Zoom. And if you have any trouble throughout the debate, please private message Kate through the chat. She is labeled as Kate Tech Support. So with no further ado, we're going to get right to the opening remarks, starting with Doug. Once again, you have 1.5 minutes on your opening remarks.
Thank you, NAACP, for putting this forum together, our second one, and I definitely appreciate the time that you dedicated to do this. As mentioned by the moderator, my name is Doug Ridenour. I've lived in Modesto my entire life. Was born in 1951 here in Modesto, and I've had the opportunity to spend not just my life here as an adult. I'm married to my wife Linda. I have one son, Doug Jr., and have 2 beautiful grandchildren that I'm really experiencing the teenage and growing years of their lives. My biggest efforts that I've done in the last 41 years as a police officer is to provide the type of service to the community. As a law enforcement officer, spent 16 years as a reserve officer, spent another 25 years as a full-time police officer, and then my last 5 years as a city council member. I first got interested in city council business actually in the 80s, and then because of my job, there wasn't much politicking you can do in law enforcement, so I waited until I retired. My goal is to be able to bring my experience, my love for this city, the leadership that I believe that the city of Modesto needs, definitely in the sense of the things that we're going through right now with the pandemic. So thank you very much.
All righty. Thank you very much, Doug. Sue?
Thank you to the NAACP for having us back and for hosting the forum this evening. I'm Sue Zwahlen, and I'm running for mayor because I love Modesto and I am ready to lead our city during these most challenging times. Many of you already know my background. I spent over 40 years working as an emergency room nurse, and I spent 8 years on the Modesto City Schools Board of Education. I have dedicated my life to serving our community. This pandemic has been challenging, to say the least. I believe that our city could have benefited from a unified, consistent message from our leaders. I don't believe that we had that from them. And as a nurse, my heart goes out to all of the frontline healthcare professionals who are staffing our overcrowded hospitals right now. We need to work together, have consistent leadership, and to get back on the right track and get our economy going again. The city of Modesto has not benefited from the discord that we have seen on the council, and I want to work hard to find common ground and a productive path forward for Modesto. One thing I can't stress enough is the importance of voting. In November, we had historic voter turnout with nearly 80% of registered voters casting a ballot in our county. The last time we elected a mayor in a runoff, only 29% of registered voters cast a ballot. So please, please vote. Tell your family to vote and tell your friends to vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. All righty. And now we're going to move right along to the actual debate. I just want to let you know again, just to reiterate, you have 1 minute to answer the question. We're going to start the question first with Doug. And the question is this: distribution of the COVID vaccine has begun. The first recipients will be healthcare providers and essential workers. It's not expected to be available to the masses for several more months. How, as mayor, will you advocate for Modestoans to ensure that our most vulnerable population have access to the vaccine?
Thank you. I think the number one thing we have to do is balance the distribution, and not just for frontline workers, but also as a priority to our most vulnerable, and those are the seniors and those folks that are imminently potentially have a crisis if they don't get this vaccine. This is one of the things that I think that we've done nationally that could have been done better and should be done better. And so my goal would be to work with the state legislators and those that within our county who has the ability to make that distribution to those that need it the most. And especially those elderly people that are in senior housing and the ones that primarily have taken the largest amount of deaths that have occurred throughout this pandemic. So my hope is that that would be what I would work diligently with the city and the county supervisors and those that are have the jurisdiction over the distribution of the vaccine.
Thank you. Same question to Sue.
I would agree wholeheartedly that we have not had a consistent message on the national level, but neither have we had a consistent message on the local level. So particularly as a nurse, I have worn a mask from day one in public, and I would continue to be the voice of how important it is for everyone to be vaccinated so we can bring our economy back to where we all want it to be. It would be necessary to work collaboratively, as I have done in many of our underserved areas, serving on the school board, and also as a nurse in the emergency room. So it would be leadership from the top of our city government all the way to getting the message out to every single member of our community on the importance of having the vaccine. And in the meantime, wearing a mask, physically distancing, and washing our hands.
All righty, thank you. Moving right along to question number 2, and this will go to Sue. Because of COVID-19, there has been a moratorium on evictions. We know that there are quite a few individuals and families who have to make tough financial decisions, such as food on the table or rent. When we return to a new normalcy, as mayor of Modesto, what is your plan regarding evictions post-COVID-19 for those who anticipate facing it because of their inability to pay now?
People are really suffering. We know that throughout our nation and throughout the world, quite frankly. And in our community, I would certainly be listening to them, paying close attention to the issues that they're having, and also to what's happening on the federal and state and county level. I do have the endorsement of our Congressman Josh Harder, of State Senator Susan Eggman. I would work closely with them to bring all necessary resources to our community, as well as with our county leaders. So as there's funding available, we would certainly want to help each member of our community that is in that situation and do all that we can in this very unusual time.
Thank you, Sue. Doug?
One of the things that's been extremely important during this pandemic is the fact that we all have the understanding and balance out the authority that we have in the city government. The federal and state have both addressed this issue of evictions. I think we have to look at those and make sure that those are being properly executed within our community. I'm not aware as we speak today that we have a huge crisis of those kinds of things being impacted our citizens right now. But the question was primarily post-COVID. And those are the types of things that we need to sit down and make sure that we stay consistently aware of those kinds of issues where landlords may then start increasing the evictions based on the post-COVID period of time. So I think it's very critical that we pay attention to that and have those people within our city government maintaining the awareness of those kinds of issues. And if we have to do something citywide. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Doug. And this next question will also be directed to Doug as well. One way to demonstrate that all are welcome and safe in Modesto is to have the mayor and city administrators reflect the diversity of the city. As mayor, how will you promote diversity in your administration, specifically with the African American and LGBTQ+ communities?
One of the things we have to do, we're mandated with policy, city policy, to do that. I think that anybody that is qualified, we ought to be looking for diversity within our city government. And I would definitely be conscientious about that. I have been conscientious about that in the last 5 years that I've had anything to do with it as a city council member. I think it's critical to have a diverse staff within your city government, one that represents our community at large. That's critical for us to do and make sure that we are balanced out and making sure that our city staff and city government looks like our city itself. So I would be very conscientious about working that with the host, the HR division and our staff as well. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Doug. Same question for Sue.
Yes, inclusivity is extremely important in our workforce within our city government. And my experience in bringing groups together when I served 8 years on the school board this was also one of the areas that I felt very strongly about and worked hard towards. There again, I've been endorsed by the Stanislaus County African American Democratic Club. I've worked closely with many other groups. I've also worked closely with the Latino community, and I know that our South Modesto partnership is acutely aware of these issues. So I think that it's something that we are all aware of and need to keep it in the forefront and make sure that everyone feels a part. That's how we will have a strong city. And I don't intend to just bring people to the table. I intend to go to them and we all build the table together. We all set goals and move forward.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. All righty, this question is for you as well, Sue. And it is, what is your understanding of an independent city auditor, and do you support prioritizing hiring one? If hired, how would you ensure they're protected to do their job?
All right, we do need to look seriously at filling that position, and it should be an independent position, and the auditor should report to the whole council. Our mayor's job is to work with the other 6 members of the council and to hold staff accountable for their actions. So I do support hiring an auditor, and sooner than later. I know that that there's been issues with this in the past and communication broke down and staff were getting mixed and contradictory signals, but that wasn't a staff issue as much as a council issue. And I intend to change that by serving as mayor of our city.
All righty, thank you. Same question for Doug.
Thank you. We definitely need an independent auditor. That's one of the things that I have in my first 100 days that I'll be there, is to make sure that we have that options, whatever we decide to do, brought back to the full council for a decision. One of the most difficult things that you do when you have an auditor, no matter whether it's a contract auditor or not, it's not just that particular person or persons that are working for one person, they're working for 7 people, the full council. That means you have to keep the full council involved. And that means in this particular situation with the city of Modesto, our auditor is a chartered officer position. So that person works for the full city council and not just the mayor. One of the critical parts is that why that's so important is because all 7 of us represent this large city. And in order for us to be independent and make sure that they remains independent, they must work for the entire full council.
All righty, thank you. So before I get into the next question, I just want to let you know that this question that I'm going to ask is actually in 2 parts on the same subject. So we're going to start this first part with Doug. And the question is, what protocols and checks and balances will be put in place so that $16 million in taxpayer dollars are not spent without oversight or authorization again?
Well, the first thing is that you need to do again is that you have to have accountability with your staff. And one of the things is in that $16 million, that was actually brought to the council, but the process was not completed as it was supposed to within the structure of the money. One of the things you have to do is that you have to hold your staff accountable. But that being said, you can't hold your staff accountable unless your full council has an understanding about leadership. And one of the things that we must do in this council, no matter who wins, is that we have to bring leadership to the full council and to represent the city at large and make sure that our staff is being held accountable for those kinds of issues. That being said, we have to also remember, in order for that to happen, we have to have outcomes, and then the people have to come back and report to the full council how those outcomes are being held. And that's being checks in full council to your staff.
All righty, thank you, Doug. Sue?
Not being a part of the council when this particular situation occurred, I cannot speak precisely about every detail that happened during that time. I do know that in my experience on the school board, I was on the audit committee. I served on several other committees involving finances, and it's extremely important to take care and to vigilantly watch the budget. I do agree with Doug in the importance of having all of the information given to all council members. When I was first elected to the school board, that did not always happen, and that is extremely important that everyone gets all the information that they need to vote on and to make good decisions. And accountability is one of my top 3 priorities. So it's the way I operated as a mother of 6 children and 10 grandchildren, and also in my career and on the school board. Thanks.
All righty, thank you so much. This one's going to be for Sue as well. It's going to be part 2 of the same question. And that is, youth programs have suffered significantly in this city. That wasted $6 million would have saved many of our youth from street gangs, juvenile delinquency, and school dropout. What will you do?
Much of my passion has always surrounded the young people in our community. And I know that many school districts have after-school programs, and obviously children and youth are their priority. And we can partner as a city with school districts, as we did with Modesto City Schools, to provide any support, places where children can be active and outside, outdoors, provide safe streets so that they can get to and from school safely and not in walking through puddles when it's raining. So there's many ways that we can coordinate so that our youth have a vibrant place to live and have a great quality of life in a safe community. And that also involves, of course, working closely with law enforcement to have those partnerships and have them visible in the community and move forward in that direction.
All righty, thank you. Doug?
One of the most critical things that in a city our size is having our youth programs. And over the years, I have favored the fact that we have to make a quality of life for our youth and our citizens alike. That's why in the 80s, I was part of the Wake Up program for the police department to establish that, and then moved into the at-risk program at the church, where I ran that for 12 years. My recommendation to the city, I've recommended this already, is that we have to find funding to reinvent our parks and our youth programs. And that you're going to have money to do that. So we have to look for resources, funding resources. And one of my comments to them and recommendations is to maybe utilize some of the cannabis money that we're getting. That's a revenue that we're getting there. And I recommended that we take 50% of that cannabis money and give towards our youth and park programs. So we'll have to see what the council thinks about that in the event that I'm able to become mayor.
All righty, thank you, Doug. And this question will go to Doug as well. Employee pension plans have contributed to many cities going bankrupt. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Regarding the pensions is a huge problem. It's something that, again, when you have a council that is not fully engaged with each other about those long-term costs, is that you have to be able to be sustainable. And those are the kinds of things that you need to be aware of when you're making these decisions. So first thing I would do is I would work with our partner associations, those are folks that are involved in the pension plans, and sit down with them and work with them and see how they will be able to help us out. In fact, the city of Modesto has done this in the past 5 years. We have actually sat down and the partner plans have helped us out. The second thing you would do is sit down and have an actual committee or a commission that sit down and address this issue. It's critical to get your hands around this. And the third thing you would do is to come down with a plan about when we can be sustained and when we can be held accountable for paying off these pensions. We're going to have to pay them off. And so we need to have a full plan brought to the council and approved on.
Thank you. Sue?
Yes, in the school district as well, we struggled often with this issue, and I've done some research on this issue, and it's really going to be fluid going forward. And it's not, in my way of thinking, it's not necessarily a payoff, because it depends on how the economy grows and ebbs and flows. That's how those pensions are paid. So I guess, really it goes back to having a budget process that's participatory and very early, and having updated reports, such as quarterly reports at city council meetings on the status of spending and where we stand with our pension plans. And also, the most important thing is that we need to grow our economy. So coming out of the pandemic, that's going to take all hands on deck, but that's what will ultimately solve all of these problems.
Thank you. And this question is for Sue again. What is your plan to bring back trust, honesty, respect, civility, and effective governance to the city council?
My experience with family, community, career, church, and being elected twice before, and even a much larger area that it actually covers our city, plus a much larger area. So I believe that my work on the school board for 8 years speaks for itself. We had 4,000 employees. The city has 1,200. So I have a lot of experience working with large budgets and large HR departments. I've already respectfully and civilly represented all the residents of the city of Modesto, plus many more, as I mentioned, in these outlying areas. So I believe that I am a principled decision maker. I'm honest and trustworthy, and I think those qualities count, and they mean something to the people of our community. So I plan to continue forward in the way that I always have, treat people with respect, be honest and be civil, and move forward, and especially move Modesto forward.
Thank you. Doug?
One of the most important things in order to have all those things you mentioned is that you have to have the ability to communicate with people, have relationships with people, and then you have to be genuine. You have to be genuine in their issues, and that's be a great listener. And all those things are critical for leaders, especially politicians, because people do have those issues of lack of trust, and they see things that come on the city council, and because we deliberate things, and that's the only time we have the ability to deliberate those things, they can walk away and say those those people on the diocese are not civil with each other. And reality is that improves by having that ability to talk to the community, get out and speak, and not just sit at the dais or meet once a week, but get out and talk to people and see what their thoughts about how they perceive their government working. That being said, communication, leadership, listening, those are abilities that each and every one of us have to have, and the ability to work together and still understand that we're in an open session and we must deliberate issues.
All righty, thank you. And this next question is directed to Doug as well. Housing is a huge issue in California and in Modesto in particular. What creative thinking will you employ and encourage to meet the growing need for housing that is safe, meets the needs of the community, and is affordable?
Well, housing is very important. And one of the most important things that we have to do as a city is make sure that we work with our economic development department and we look at the kinds of things we as a city can balance out and make sure that we're doing whatever we can to make that housing, permitting, and those kinds of things where people can and developers can come and build housing. That's one of the things that is critical for a city council and the entire city council to be aware of, and make sure that we have those kinds of creative staff thinking about how we can become a city that has the kind of housing that's necessary. I'm proud of the things that's happened in the last 5 years that we've tried to do. Tivoli is not that far from actually turning dirt in the Northeast area, and that's going to be a huge project, but it took such a long time for us to get there. And I, as a mayor, would make sure that we could cut down that time, some of that red tape that took in the last 15 years to get to the point I'm actually.
All righty, thank you. Sue?
Yes, this is a very important question. Thank you for asking it. We have an extreme housing shortage in our area, and that needs to be addressed sooner than later. It would be important to make a list of all available land for affordable housing and get an updated status report, possibly twice a year, regarding affordable housing. And there again, I think we need to aggressively pursue state and federal housing funding. And that is where my work with our congressmen and our state leaders would come into play. And I've had some experience with that on the school board, working with some leaders in Sacramento. And as we all know, our Central Valley has been neglected in many areas, and we need to change that. And I'm ready to work on day one to start making those changes and bring housing and increasing our economy and whatever it takes to provide housing for our residents.
All righty, thank you. The next question is for Sue as well. What should people of color and other disadvantaged minorities expect from your administration if you get elected mayor of our great city? And that's from the LCR president.
Well, I've been a member of LCR for many, many years, and El Concilio, and many other groups, the Dr. Parker Committee, which is now Parents Leading Children Committee. And I have, as I said, dedicated my life to inclusivity and having all people represented and everyone involved in collaboratively making these decisions. I have chosen to work on many political causes that espouse inclusivity, and I would continue to bring in diverse populations and have those discussions and see what people are really experiencing in the community, and make sure that we are richly represented by everyone to make decisions in our city.
Thank you. Doug?
One of the key things that as a leader we should be doing is encouraging that equality for all of our citizens. And one of the things that we have to do is that we have to be out in the field and out in the city and doing those things. I've established a young leaders group that almost a year, last February, and where we meet every month and we talk about issues about them. Last night we had our meeting, and we talked about how we get the public-private folks together and working on how we can get young people involved in finding work and the kinds of entrepreneurial things that many of the leaders here in Modesto are doing. Had a great meeting last night, and it's those kinds of things that I think we have to stay consciously aware of that. And that means that goes back to the leadership of the council. All of the council needs to be aware of that. Every single one of us need to be involved in that, and giving the opportunities for people to come to Modesto and find jobs to consciously be aware of it and have a full council discussion and policy regarding this issue.
Thank you, Doug. And the next question will also be given to you as well. In the past 2 years, what community events have you participated in?
I've been very busy as a council member. I started 5 years ago. I started continually being involved in those things in the city. I'm a member of the West Side community. I'm in the collaborative. I attend the NAACP meetings that they have. I work on a monthly meeting with the city ministries to sit down and address specifically problems within the West Side of Modesto. I also have been involved with the Manos Unidas program in South Modesto, encouraging the young leaders down there to continue to do their nonprofit work and trying to make things better in the South Modesto. I'm also a Rotarian. I'm on a Toastmasters. I'm a member of our church. I've been very involved in the youth services and believe that that's a key opponent that we need to continue with the city of Modesto.
Thank you, Doug. Sue?
I too have been involved in the community. I have been a longtime member of the Hispanic Leadership Council, the Latino Community Roundtable, and Friends of Modesto Library, League of Women Voters. I am very involved in my church. Am I currently a Sunday school teacher and involved in communications. I serve on the Stanislaus County Interfaith Council for many years, which is a diverse group of faith believers. And I have been attending regularly for many years, City Ministry Network Catalyst. I've served on the board of Interfaith Ministries, which is a free food pantry and clothes closet for many years, 23 years, I believe. So many different groups, multi-faith leaders in the community, been involved previously, not the last 2 years, but many first aid merit badges with Boy Scouts I have helped with, and that's it.
All righty, thank you. And this goes to you as well, Sue. How do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city?
I will do that in the way that I have always done, by sincerely including everyone. Currently, when we can't meet in person, I'm on multiple Zoom meetings, so there's really no excuse, even in the midst of a pandemic, to have gatherings and meetings together. When I am on the city council as mayor, I will expand that to have set groups that will meet regularly to bring their ideas and their entrepreneurism and their situations and what they're experiencing in their communities to the table. And together we will come up with a plan, a strategic plan going forward to promote our community with growth, and not just growth economically, but also growth personally. So I will continue doing what I have always done. Thank you.
Doug?
One of the important things that I've learned over my time as a person that's worked for the city of Modesto for 46 years now is that you have to be physically out in the community. It's our job as elected officials to be out and seeing what your community wants and getting them involved and being a good listener. That's why our council in the last 5 years has established these district meetings. We've gone through each district and had meetings of neighborhoods to sit down and encourage them to give their input back on how they think that we're doing and the kinds of things they would like us to do more of. One of the things that you can't do is have a one person running your city. You're not a one person leader. You're a 7-person council, and I would encourage the council to do the same thing within their districts. And as the mayor, to be able to help the council members to get out and get their community involved. It's very important. It's what we're supposed to be doing as leaders.
All righty, thank you. Now, these next round of questions are actually coming from the audience members. So we're going to start with Doug on this. And the question is, when you became mayor, how can you help heal the divide between the political parties here in Modesto?
One of the things, first of all, you have to understand what that political divide is. And for me, I've been there for 5 years, so I've been one of those members of any representation of the council as a whole. So the divide has not been as some may think it is. We have not one time have we not completed or decided something in the last 5 years. Sometimes our presentations haven't been of such that would make people believe that. But we have to do our business in the light of day in front of everybody. And we can't caucus in the back room and make those decisions before we get out to the dais. So a lot of the conflict that you see and the diversity that some may think, it's not diversity so much as it is deliberations. And so my first thing that I will do as the mayor is to get our council down and say, how can we do the people's business in a meaningful way that comes off in a more appropriate way that sends a better message. Thank you, Doug. Sue?
I experienced this same situation when I was on the school board for 8 years. We were very different. Each one of the board members had a lot of differences, both politically and about a lot of issues that we discussed. However, we always did it in a civil and respectful manner. You can disagree on the topics, but the behavior speaks for itself when you're on the dais. And it is most important under those circumstances to be a solid representative of our community. Be respectful, be civil, hear everyone out. That's part of the process. Yes, the Brown Act does apply. We cannot make decisions behind closed doors. We're doing the people's business in public, but it behooves us to do it in a respectful, civil, and manner in which it brings our city in a good light and in a way that attracts people to Modesto.
Thank you. This next question from the audience also goes to you, Sue. What will you do to enforce the shutdown of bars and indoor dining during COVID-19? Many bars and restaurants have full parking lots. I thought we were supposed to obey the rules.
I cannot emphasize enough the need to obey those rules. There again, if I had been a city leader at that point, we've had 9+ months now to get this message out, and I haven't heard that message. So if we would begin now with a concise message that's meaningful and clear, I think people believe that if they trust city leaders. From day one, if that had happened, it would have made a huge impact. So I think it's going to be reinforcing again the basic rules of health practice that as a nurse I've done for decades, and that has always been wearing a face covering, washing our hands, and physical distancing. So I would continue with that message. And regarding division, that's the purpose of having a strong leader as mayor, to bring people together.
All righty, thank you. Doug?
Well, one of the key things is, and just to make clear on the strong mayor thing, the strong mayor would indicate that there is a one person that runs the city in that leadership role, and I'm opposed to that. What I would do is to make sure that we would sit down as a council and not have a mixed message about this crisis that's going on right now. That being said, there's a couple things that you have to be conscious about. The state makes these rules, with the federal government passes on to the state, and then the state assumes that the local government are going to enforce these rules. Well, if anybody knows that when you're in a pandemic situation, and it's really not just a crisis throughout our country or our world, but we're having civil unrest right now about people not trusting the kinds of things that the state and federal government has come down to. So you have to look at each individual business and you have to get them involved. So you have to educate them, you have to let them know without the mixed messages of the council, and tell them this is what they're responsible for as well. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Doug. Just a reminder to all of the audience members out there, if you have a question that you would like to ask, you can definitely submit that in the chat box, and you will send that via Kate. And, please feel free to put forth any questions that you have. And moving right along, we'll start with Doug. There has been discussion among local organizations and citizens about building trust between law enforcement and community. Would you support a citizen review board with a qualified independent auditor to review policies, procedures, and complaints made by citizens against law enforcement? Then it goes on to say why or why not.
I would definitely be open to looking at what the issue is and be brought to us, so we would be open to looking at it and evaluating it. But based on what I know right now, I know of no situation at this point in the city of Modesto, which would require some of the large municipalities that have these citizen review boards that, in my opinion, that kind of hide a lot of things about the fairness of actual policing in their communities. So civilian review boards are really something that we would do like we've done in Modesto. We actually get actively involved, like the clergy council. We had those situations when we had a crisis that happened in 2000 where there was we could have had our Ferguson thing here in Modesto. And if it wasn't the chief of police at the time that was out there meeting with people, we would have the same kind of issue potentially as they do in other. We have a unique situation in Modesto, and one that we ought to be looking at as maybe being a leader for other cities.
Thank you, Doug. Sue?
Yes, I support our local police, and I also support training and increased transparency within the department and in every area of city government. And I believe that our previous chief and our interim chief have really begun the work of increasing transparency in the department, and I believe that will continue. There's absolutely a role for local citizens to ensure that their government and law enforcement is transparent and working. And as I said, I've appreciated the work that is happening and the videos that are shown, and also with our sheriff's department. I must include them. So I think we need to continue that conversation about finding that role, and I would certainly be committed to being an integral part of that conversation as mayor.
All righty, thank you. This next question will also go to you, Sue. It says, how do you understand systemic racism, and how do you intend to address it if you are elected mayor of Modesto?
That is something that I was extremely passionate about my 8 years on the school board, and have read much research regarding systemic racism and what it has done, especially to our young African-American young men, and that they are disproportionately suspended and expelled from school. And I did work in that regard for 8 years, and I understand that it is improved. And I'm so grateful to hear that. This is an issue that is serious. It's important. It means very much to me, and I know it does mean that to many other people in our community. And I would expect that we would, as we've discussed, talking about making sure that we have equity among our employees and our staff, and do more to include people of color. We need to have regular reports and stay on this continuously, and especially in our community with young people.
Thank you. Doug?
Systemic racism should not happen, and it should not be part of your city. That means it's critically important for your leadership to be partnering up with folks like the NAACP, but not just that group itself, but look at all different groups. There are some fabulous different groups throughout our community, but be the Latinos, the South Modesto Manos Unidas group. We should be connected with that. And that if you have 7 people on your council that has that same vision and same goal, you will have 7 people out there making sure that we can make things better when these kinds of issues become up. It's not going to be one of these things that you just bring and deliver it to the council and assume let's fix it. We're not going to fix anything, but we can fix it with the community. And the only way we can do that is that we, the elected officials, need to be out there and be involved with all the community groups to make sure that this is not something that occurs and that we allow to happen in the city of Modesto.
Thank you. This question also goes to Doug. The question is, what are some of your ideas of resolving the tragedy of people who live outdoors, specifically our homeless population?
One of the things we have to be involved is that's what my work has been the last 5 years, is be critically involved in the focus on prevention and the housing issue. That's one of the pillars that I have with the quality of life. We have to be conscientious about our homelessness. I tell people think that this is kind of elementary kind of thinking, but we, the people in this community and the city of Modesto, has to recognize that we have a homeless issue. It didn't just happen over the last few years. When I was 21 years old, we had a homeless issue in Modesto as well. But we have an increasing larger number and impact of homeless people. So we need to be involved with the county, because the county is our huge partner in resources. We need to have a constant committee between the city and county and other cities throughout our community of addressing this issue. And we do have those things in.
Sounds like Doug has been cut off. We didn't get the last part of your question. However, we will redirect that question, or direct that question, same question, to Sue. Thank you, Doug.
I have also served on the Focus on Prevention Council, specifically the Strengthening Family Action Council. And I'm grateful for the housing that has been provided, especially during COVID-19. That's so important. And I hope to continue with that pattern of collaboration and finding solutions. Of course, this is a multifaceted and complex problem regarding mental illness, addiction, and my experience in the emergency room working directly to help our citizens that are brought from the streets to us to care for them has been a large part of my life. I know that the Stanislaus Housing Alliance is attacking this countywide, and we are a critical partner with them, the city of Modesto is, and the housing continuum from being homeless to housed is also working on this. So regardless of a person's situation, I believe that they deserve a roof over their head, running water, electricity, and warmth.
Thank you. All righty. We have another question for you here. The question states, a local business remained open during pandemic and was fined $90,000 only to be reduced. How would you handle businesses that will remain open during this pandemic?
I feel somewhat repetitive with this, but there again, I feel like there was a real shortfall in our leaders in our city regarding this. And even the behavior that was being participated in by some of our council members did not reflect what should have happened from day one. So there again, I would reinforce wearing a mask, staying 6 feet apart, washing our hands. And I think that if we continue to emphasize how important that is, and that these rules are not just for a few, they are for everyone. That's how I grew up, to abide by the rules and abide by the law. And it's so important that we expect that of everyone. And we all need to do our part to help with this death and dying and destruction that we are seeing all around us. So it's even predicted to get worse, and we need to do better.
Thank you. Doug?
One of the things I mentioned earlier is the fact that you're having a single message coming out of the council and not a mixed message. One of the issues are that the last thing I want to do is destroy jobs, destroy businesses. And I think it's a mandate from each business person and every citizen in this community to do the kinds of things that the state has told us to do, and the things that you've heard already about our precautions, our masks, our cleaning our hands, maintaining distance amongst each other. That's a requirement that we have to do, not government. Government should not be in the business of destroying businesses. But that being said, you also have to realize that when people don't comply, or they set and basically ignore the order, then we're going to have to go up that continuum of enforcement. The fact of shutting down businesses should be the very last thing we do as a city council. So we have to make sure we get out there, communicate with people, let them know what the rules are and the consequences if they don't comply.
Thank you, Doug. This question is for you as well. What do you intend to do to increase not only voter registration, but voter turnout as a part of increasing citizen participation in local governmental issues?
Be out and into the community, be on your social media that most politicians are very much aware of because of the circumstances. You have to get people involved, and that means you've got to get out and you got to have a relationship with your community and sit down and talk to your community. I've done that within the leadership group that we've established here in my campaign, and it's one of those things that when I first got on there, I had many people that didn't like my ideology. They didn't like the things that I thought about and how I thought was resolved. But it's been interesting for me in 10 months that I've been doing it, is how people have realized that we're all people of this community. And we may think differently and we may have different ideas about certain things, but the most important thing we ought to do is think about how we can get our community involved and to getting out to vote and being involved in the community. That's what I've done in the Young Leadership Group. And they've actually come back and told me, even though 10 months ago they didn't necessarily agree, but they're glad that they continue to meet and improve their knowledge of Modesto.
Thank you, Doug. Sue?
As mayor, I would like to promote civics, especially with young people, and have those discussions to encourage them to vote and to register to vote. It's really important to partner with voter registration organizations. As I mentioned, I'm part of League of Women Voters, and one of their main priorities is voter education. So we'd have to, as mayor, we would have that sounding board to be able to get that word out, have that consistency, and potentially maybe hold meetings in other areas so that people feel more a part of the situation and get involved in local government and even beyond. So I think that I'm grateful that we have all mail-in ballots for this election. We should make voting as convenient as possible for people. One thing I think that we need to look at is this city charter that has this election at such an odd time of the year. The primary basically during the general election in November. Thanks.
All righty, thank you. This will be directed to you as well, Sue. Each of you have brought up older programs that may no longer be enough for today's youth. Where will you look for creative and innovative programs and projects for all of our youth?
I think that it will be important to bring young people, bring the youth to our meetings to engage them in the process. I have 10 grandchildren, so I am witnessing regularly the things that they are interested in. And that is true that I grew up in a different time, but I certainly stayed in touch with the youth of our community. My husband's coached football at the high school level for over 30 years. I've not missed a game on a Friday night. So I am with the youth. My 6 adult children went through public schools here. I've had them in my home teams at many times on evenings and fed them and listened to them. And I would continue to do that and encourage everyone to do that, to listen to young people. They have incredibly bright new ideas. They are learning at a far quicker rate than we ever did. And so they have much to offer, and it's very important that we hear from them and listen to them.
Thank you. Doug?
I think one of the key things on, as I mentioned earlier in our discussion about trying to raise the funding for our youth services and programming that we have in the city. And that's difficult to do when you're in a funding issue where we are $20 million potentially that we're going to be losing. So we have to be creative in our thought process and how we do. We have some gems in this community that we've built on the soccer fields and some of the great things that are happening right now and throughout our parks. And we have to put our minds together on how we can get those things funded and those programs funded. And in the 5 years that we've been there, we've done that with partnering with neighbors and making sure that we get funding for public and private sectors. And we've had a number of those things that have happened. The key thing, John, I think that's important for us to do, the people that's been around a long time, is that we need to listen to our younger generation about how we can learn to learn from them about the kinds of things that we're doing. Last night, we talked about things like coding and those kinds of things. So those things that I'd be very supportive of.
All righty, thank you. And to you, Doug, here's another question. Some of us represent the West and South Modesto communities. If either one of you became mayor, what are your plans on building more low-income apartments in houses?
I've been actively involved in the last 5 years in both of those areas. I spent 41 years of my life primarily working the west side and south side of Modesto. Those were my beats when I was a patrol officer. And I continued to do that when I was involved in the youth programs and the wake up programs and at the at-rest program we did at the church. What we have to do is encourage developers to come into those areas. And one of the great things that, in order to do that, you got to get the community involved. If you look like in South Modesto is one of the most economically vibrant areas that we have throughout our entire community. And people don't look at that, but we have a tremendous amount of entrepreneurship down there and people that want to build and develop things. And we need as a city to encourage that. We may not have the money to go out and just have those things occur, but we can go along and partner with those developers and those citizens on making their community better. And that's what I would continue to do.
All righty, Sue?
There again, I think it would be important to develop a list of all available land for affordable housing, start there and get a twice-a-year report on the status of affordable housing in Modesto, and particularly in the areas that you mentioned. We need to, again, aggressively pursue state and federal housing funding. That is of utmost importance. And regarding building, the important thing is to streamline the process for builders and for developers to want to bring their business here. So we need to, first of all, be out, as was mentioned, in the community to find out the status of the housing situation there again, and bring everyone together to come up with solutions in this regard. I've spent much of my life there. My aunt and uncle many years ago had a drive-in restaurant on Crow's Landing Road. And with our schools, Hanshaw Junior High School and many elementary schools have spent time there also.
All righty, thank you. And Sue, this question will be next for you. Substance abuse and mental illness contribute greatly to the homeless problem in any community. What work will you urge the council to do to increase access to treatment, rehabilitation, education, and employment opportunities that meet the needs of this population?
As I mentioned in one answer before too, it certainly is a multifaceted and complex problem. As human beings, we are complex individuals and we each have unique challenges. So I have worked very closely in helping people in their struggle with addiction, and very often in the emergency room with people that are in mental health crises. I have enjoyed the work that I've done, and we can make much progress in this area. Largely, it is an educational piece for people to fully realize how prevalent and how substance abuse and mental illness can affect families, and that it's treatable. It's very treatable. I've had many patients that have done very well when they receive the proper treatment and medication that they need. So there again, that will involve federal and state and county partners. Thanks.
All righty. Doug?
One of the social issues that this is a huge problem, obviously, in our world, in our community, and throughout the many of our areas. But that being said, we also have to analyze on exactly who are the participants in trying to solve this issue. You can't stick your head in the sand and say, this is not a city of Modesto problem. In fact, we don't receive funding for those kinds of centers to enhance that type of treatment. Though we need to be involved in the county who does receive that, and how we can participate as a city to work on improving those types of things with the people that have medical, drug, and mental issues. This has to get solved, and it cannot get solved by just the city. A lot of people think the city has the ability to just go out and form certain kinds of programs to solve these things, and we can't do this by ourselves. We have to work it with the county and the state.
Thank you, Doug. This next question is directed to you as well. How do you plan to rejuvenate local businesses, that's downtown, after the pandemic?
I would continue with the same thing that we're doing right now during the pandemic, is that we never thought that we would allow to have restaurants, for example, to be able to have their dining out in the sidewalk or in the street area. That never really came to our, although it should have, but it had not. And so the pandemic has made us look at making decisions on how we can enhance and improve and help businesses make it during this pandemic. And I would be one that would recommend that we don't restrict that back to what we would do pre-COVID. We need to look at
Excuse me, Doug, you are cut off.
I just keeps cutting off for some reason. Anyway, having businesses to go out and have the ability to continue to make money and even enhance their ability to make money post-COVID.
All righty. Sue?
Pre-pandemic, we were moving along, but we need to do better and press forward. During the pandemic, we've had much discussion about abiding by the guidelines the state has set forward. That's the way the economy is going to reopen, is by following those guidelines. The sooner we do that, the more the economy will open, and post-pandemic, we can go at it full speed ahead. This could be an opportune time to bring people here that are leaving more urban areas and larger cities. And I would be open to looking at anyone coming here and seeing what people want. We are not rivals with anyone in economic development, with Stanislaus County, or with other cities. We want to be partners and not rivals. So I would encourage any new ideas and entrepreneurism, and would hope that that we can make Modesto the city that people would be attracted to.
All righty, thank you. And Sue, this question is specific. This question is actually directed to only you. The question is, Sue, you mentioned that we need to grow Modesto's economy. What ideas do both of you have for doing this? And how will you get Modesto on more stable financial footing? Actually, that's for both of you, but we'll start with Sue.
Obviously, this is an extremely important part of being a leader in our city, and is one of my top priorities, along with public safety and accountability. So the way that we begin to make that happen is by having a stable council that cooperatively comes up with a strategic growth plan and updates the general plan so that we have a map going forward to expand our economy. We have so many young people, especially, that some I feel so bad for, that have just recently opened up businesses that now in the pandemic are at risk of losing those. but we need to revitalize that again and bring people together to be a strong city council and make Modesto move forward and provide the atmosphere and the environment to have that progress.
Thank you, Sue. So just to let all of our audience members know, we're coming to the end of this. We can take maybe about 1 or 2 more questions. So with that, I'm going to move right on in so we don't waste any time. Doug, the same question to you as well.
So John, would you just repeat that question, please?
You bet. It said, you mentioned that we need to grow Modesto's economy. What ideas do both of you have for doing this? And how will you get Modesto on more stable financial footing?
Well, the first part is that you want to have a community that people are want to come and live. And that does play a role for the city government. How can we do that? So part of that is to have a vision from the council about where we want to end up in the next 4 years or 25 years. And we're doing that right now with the comprehensive plan. We have to have the quality of life and the amenities of our city for people to want to come and live in Modesto. For example, the Gateway project, we just got almost $3 million from grant money to start improving the Gateway. That's going to be a City of Modesto walkway, water walkway here, right here in Modesto. It's been here for generations and we've done nothing with it. The youth program, the soccer program, coming with the ability to have a council that has an understanding that how can we encourage businesses to come here and make Modesto the kind of city that people want to come, live, and get old in. Those are the kinds of things that you do by visioning and having a council on the same sheet of paper, and that's what I would do.
Thank you, Doug. Just for anyone that's sending me texts on questions, I will not be able to answer them. If once again you want to direct those questions to Kate, so please direct those questions to Kate, so that way your answers or your questions will be answered. All righty. Moving right along, what do you think the most important things that residents of Modesto can do to support you if elected as mayor?
Does that go to me first?
And that will go to Doug.
Okay.
One of the things you have to do, and one of the things I feel that I've done for 5 years is that where I'm at as a candidate for the mayor is stuff that I've worked my whole life in, and more specifically the last 5 years is getting out and talking, attending business openings, the grand openings, ribbon cuttings. Those are kinds of things that the majority of people that support me today appreciated those things that I've done. And that's the kind of thing that people are interested in. They want to know that you have a council member or a mayor that will listen and then take back to their council and discuss the kinds of issues that the people of this community wants us to do as far as council members. So I would encourage folks to get involved and continue to be involved. I will be actively out there. I'm a kind of a 35% kind of a guy. I believe that I should be out in the community 35% of my time. I encourage our staff to do that, and I will continue to do that because we need to be out listening to what the people want our city to be at. We work for them. Thank you.
Sue?
I would say that being accessible would be the first component to identifying how they can support me. I've always given my cell phone number to every one of my constituents, even within the school board, which is a much larger constituency than the city of Modesto. People know my address, they can stop by. I've got lots of supporters that have given me much advice, and I'm keeping a list of how we can move Modesto forward and with all of their suggestions. Regarding being out in the community, for the 8 years on the school board, we didn't really have an office. So all we were doing was being out in the community. I probably attended 3 to 5 events every day to see how our students were progressing. I would behave the same way on the city council. People would have direct access to me. I would schedule appointments. I would answer my phone, receive text messages, respond to emails in a timely manner, and be available.
All righty, thank you. And we have, looks like here, let me see on my screen, we have room for 2 more We have actually 2 more questions, and then we'll conclude here. However, this question is starting with Sue. Particularly in the age of technology and the pandemic and climate change, it seems that we all are required to be more imaginative, resourceful, and generally do things differently. What do you think your leadership will bring to Modesto that is new?
I think that my experience in always being with young people is one way that I've sort of looked at our community through a different lens. And it's really imperative that we are open to new ideas. I have always read the latest research regarding community issues and problems and ways to solve them. I spend a lot of time doing research in these areas. So I think that it's being accessible, being available, being out in the community. Regarding, I mean, you mentioned the pandemic and climate change. I feel that I am uniquely qualified to lead our city during a world health crisis as a nurse. Regarding air, I always think of air quality in our community. We know we have a problem there, and there again, it would be important to work with federal and state leaders to improve that, especially in the lives of children that suffer in our area so deeply from asthma and other respiratory issues.
All righty, thank you. Doug.
One of the things you have to do as a leader is to make sure that you have the ability to have the folks that were within your city knowing what's going on in your world, in your community, in your state, and your region. And so those are the ones, one of the things that I would encourage our staff to do that through the city manager, is to make sure that we're out there looking at what other cities and communities are doing, what's working, and what should we be doing and looking at in our city. And one of the most critical parts I think we have as a politician is that we need to sit back and we need to listen. We don't always need to be right. In fact, we should never worry about who gets the credit as long as the things are working well and we are progressing as far as a city and a community. And we can only do that if we sit and we listen to what's around us. We know what's going on in our world, in our state, in our region, but also getting our city with a common vision from the council to be moving in that particular direction. And that's one of the key things I will do as a mayor for our city.
All righty, thank you. And this will be the last question for the evening in the debate. Doug, at the end of your term, what will Modesto look and feel like?
Well, it will first of all, it will look much better than it is today, because we will have the openness during my term as to do those great imaginary things that you've talked about during this last hour. I hope to have if not a completion of the gateway, a well-established gateway that we can go out and have the types of services that we have during our natural water river that flows through our community, a more powerful youth services and a youth sports event like we have off a lit road. Those kinds of things that I think are going to be critically important for us to make sure that our downtown is a vibrant downtown. One that people have recovered from COVID and from a place that people can come and live in a new post-COVID world and have the kinds of amenities that they have to have. And those are the things I'm encouraged about with a general plan update that we will have completed within the next couple of years.
All righty, thank you. Sue?
I intend to restore public confidence in our city government. We have a great location here, family-friendly city with a moderate climate, with the evening Delta breeze, and I want to promote that to anyone that will listen, to bring your business here, move here, enjoy what we have here. We need to tap into the resources in our community to make Modesto the best place to raise our families and have a business and to thrive, not just survive, but thrive in a healthy, safe environment. So that's how I see Modesto. I always have, but I know that we can do much better by our council working together.
All righty, thank you. And so now, ladies and gentlemen, audience members, we are going to move right into our closing remarks. And again, for the candidates, you have 1.5 minutes to do your closing remark, and we're going to start with Sue.
Thank you again to the NAACP for hosting this forum this evening. I think we are all ready to put 2020 behind us, and it's going to take all of us to build a better future for Modesto, to grow our economy and to make Modesto an even better place to live. We have a lot of major challenges, but I am committed to the task. I have lived here all of my life and have spent my entire life committed to making Modesto a better place. I'm ready to see Modesto move forward, and I'm confident that I can build the momentum to do that in our community. Again, I can't stress enough how important it is to vote in this election. A lot of people don't even know that there's an election happening. So please help me get the word out, and don't forget to return your ballot. I'd be honored to have your support and encourage you to reach out to me by visiting my website at www.sue4mayor, that's F-O-R, formayor.com, or emailing me at sue@sue4mayor.com. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sue. And Doug, you have 1.5 minutes for your closing.
Thank you, John. And thank you to the NAACP, Wendy, Angela, Sue, Kate, John for putting this on. And one of the things that you don't hear much in campaigns, because you're campaigning, you want to win. So you normally don't hear about things that are the good things that have happened in your city that you're campaigning for. And we've done a number of great things. And my hope and my closing comments are this. Our quality of life in Modesto will only improve when the citizens of Modesto understand how important it is to improve that quality of life, to understand what homelessness is about. We've done great things like the tertiary plant, the blight. We have now a blight commission that is actually going to start next month, that we will have a commission that's been actually commissioned by the council, that will be part of who we are, that will be looking at how our system and our city and our blight and are those kinds of things that we need to clean up. So when people come here, they don't see that blight. We look at the youth services that have improved, the parks, the gateway, the downtown general plan, the general plan that we've done for the entire city, ACE train. Those things are happening. We're going to have a Starbucks at the corner of 9th and J Street within the next few months. Tivoli is going to be starting to turn dirt within the next year. There's a lot of great things, and you don't hear about those things, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of things that are going on and have gone on, and we need to appreciate what we've done, even though we may not agree with the way it got done, but things are doing well in Modesto, and I'm going to continue to do those as mayor.
All righty, thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our debate. I would like to say thank you to all the candidates, and I will now turn it over to the president of the NAACP, Wendy Bird.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. You did an awesome job. And thank you to everyone who was on. We received a lot of questions, and obviously we weren't able to get to all of them, but I think the ones that were discussed were good and important. So there's going to be another debate that Modesto B is going to have on January the 6th at 12 o'clock noon, 12 to 1:30. So you'll get another chance to ask questions. And also, you can also contact council members or either the guest via email. And so I would encourage you to continue doing your research, continue to get informed about the different issues. Now, as a reminder too, this election is a little different than before because you'll have a whole month to cast your ballot. So the ballots will be mailed out on January the 4th, and the voting ends on February the 2nd. That's a long time for you to get your vote in. They can be turned in, your vote can be turned in by mail, or you can go to the election office at 1021 I Street in downtown Modesto. When you receive that ballot, you'll also receive instructions about where the other locations are that you can turn in your ballot. So with that said, I want to thank everybody so much for coming, and have a good night. Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Thanks again, Sue and Doug.
Thank you
You're
very much,
welcome.
you guys. Great
Great
job.
job.
Take care.
Okay.